The classroom hums with nervous energy as Mrs. Brandt stands at the front, holding Marcus's poem between two manicured fingers. Her voice is sharp, each word delivered with a pointed edge as she reads his lines aloud. The students shift in their seats, some glancing away, others watching Marcus for a reaction he refuses to show. His hands grip the notebook on his desk, knuckles white, the paper's edge digging into his palm. He stares at the floor, jaw set, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing him flinch. Mrs. Brandt pauses, her smile tight. "Wings clipped by silent storms," she repeats, her tone mocking. "Dramatic, isn't it?" The class titters nervously. Marcus's friend in the next row taps her pencil, the only sound in the heavy air. The posters of Whitman and Frost loom over them, silent judges in a room that feels colder with every word. Mrs. Brandt offers a final comment, her voice dripping with false encouragement. "Creative effort, Marcus, but maybe simpler next time?" The bell rings, a sharp relief. Marcus rips the poem from his notebook, the sound sudden and raw. For a moment he hovers by the trash can, the poem trembling in his hand. Instead of discarding it, he slips it into his backpack, frayed edges and all. Mrs. Brandt watches him, her eyes satisfied, pearls glinting at her throat. She thinks the lesson is over, but Marcus's silence is not surrender. It is the first spark of something she cannot control. As the students file out, the lights flicker overhead. Marcus's steps are steady, his shoulders squared. The poem, battered but not broken, presses against his back, a quiet promise that his story isn't finished. In the hallway, the world moves on, but a storm is brewing, silent and unseen. Before the story continues, please let us know from where you are watching this video. Write your city or country in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit like if you believe in stories that challenge injustice. Your engagement gives power to voices that need to be heard. Marcus sits at his desk, eyes fixed, on the wood grain as the classroom empties around him. The laughter from earlier still lingers, echoing in his ears. He presses his lips together, refusing to let his face betray the sting. The poem, now tucked away in his backpack, feels heavier than any textbook. He remembers his grandmother's voice, the way she used to recite stories in the kitchen, stories filled with rhythm, pain, and hope. Those words, now twisted and mocked, swirl in his mind. He glances up at the posters on the wall. Whitman, Frost, Dickinson. All faces that look nothing like his own. The room is bright, but it feels cold, the kind of cold that seeps under your skin and settles in your bones. Marcus's friend Jalen passes by his desk, pausing just long enough to whisper, "You okay?" Marcus nods, but the answer hangs between them unfinished. Jalen gives a quick, supportive squeeze to Marcus's shoulder before slipping out the door. Mrs. Brandt gathers her papers, her movements crisp and efficient. She doesn't look at Marcus as she leaves, her heels clicking a steady beat down the hallway. Marcus watches her go, his jaw clenched. He wonders how many poems have been tossed aside in this room, how many dreams have been folded up and hidden away. The weight of unseen potential presses down on him, a reminder that his words, his stories, are not meant for these walls, or so he's been told. As the last student leaves, Marcus finally stands. He runs his fingers over the cover of his notebook, tracing the indentations left by his grip. The classroom is empty now, but the memory of what happened lingers, settling in the corners like dust. Marcus steps into the hallway, the poem burning against his back, and promises himself he won't let this be the end of his story. Mrs. Brandt stands by her desk, sorting through a stack of essays with practiced indifference. Marcus approaches, notebook clutched to his chest, his steps measured and careful. She glances up, her expression unreadable, and gestures for him to leave his work on the pile. He hesitates, then places it gently at the top, his fingers lingering for a moment, longer than necessary. She picks up his essay, eyes scanning the first few lines. "Enough for effort, Marcus. But maybe next time, try something more relatable." Her words are soft, almost kind, but the message lands hard. The smile she offers doesn't reach her eyes. Marcus nods, lips pressed into a thin line, the compliment stinging more than any outright criticism. Around them, the classroom is unusually quiet, the tension settling like a heavy blanket. A student in the back snaps a pencil, the sound sharp in the stillness. Marcus's friend Jalen shifts in his seat, his jaw working as if holding back a response. Mrs. Brandt continues to shuffle papers, her attention already elsewhere. Marcus turns to leave, his shoulders stiff, the weight of her words settling, deep. He glances back once, catching her adjusting her glasses, her gaze already fixed on the next essay. The clock ticks loudly, marking the seconds until the bell. Marcus returns to his desk, hands trembling as he packs away his things. He feels the eyes of his classmates on him, some sympathetic, others indifferent. The room feels smaller, the walls pressing in. The only sound is the faint hum of the radiator and the distant echo of Mrs. Brandt's suggestion. As the bell finally rings, Marcus stands, his resolve hardening. He walks out, head high, refusing to let her disguised dismissal define him. The door closes behind him with a quiet finality, leaving Mrs. Brandt alone with her papers and the faintest hint of doubt. The bell's shrill ring cuts through the quiet, signaling the end of class. Marcus lingers at his desk, waiting for the last of his classmates to shuffle out. He slides his hand into his backpack, fingers brushing the folded poem, the paper slightly torn at the edge from where he ripped it free. He stands, shoulders squared, and walks to the trash can, pausing as he hovers over it. For a long moment, he stares at the crumpled page, the words he poured his heart into now trembling in his grip. Mrs. Brandt stands by the door, arms crossed, watching him with a look of mild curiosity. She expects him to let go, to toss away what she's already dismissed. Marcus's hand shakes, but he doesn't drop the poem. Instead, he smooths the paper, straightening the creases as best he can. He glances up, meeting her gaze for the briefest second. Her lips curl in a small, knowing smile, convinced she's won. Marcus blinks, his expression unreadable, and slips the poem back into his backpack, the frayed edge sticking out just enough to remind him it's still there. As he walks past her, Mrs. Brandt steps aside, her satisfaction evident. She doesn't say a word, but her posture says enough. Marcus keeps his head high, refusing to let her see any sign of defeat. In the hallway, the noise of students rushing to their next class swells around him, but he moves through it all with quiet purpose. He finds Jalen waiting by the lockers. "You good?" Jalen asks, concern flickering in his eyes. Marcus nods, voice steady. "Yeah. I'm not done yet." The two walk away together, the poems safe in Marcus's bag. A small act of defiance, a promise to himself that his story isn't over. Marcus steps out of the school building, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the pavement. His backpack is zipped tight, the worn poem pressed close to his back like a secret shield. Each step is steady, deliberate, carrying the weight of words that refuse to be silenced. Behind him, Mrs. Brandt adjusts her pearl necklace, her smile tight and unreadable. She watches from the doorway, convinced the moment has passed, unaware that a quiet storm is gathering just beyond her sight. The hallway hums with the usual chatter, but beneath it lies a tension, a subtle shift that no one yet fully understands. Marcus's phone buzzes in his pocket, a message marked urgent. He glances down, fingers trembling slightly as he reads the unexpected invitation to perform at the Presidential Inauguration Youth Showcase. The news settles over him like a sudden breeze, stirring the embers of hope and resolve. He pauses at the corner, the city's noise fading into the background. His breath is steady, his eyes clear. The poem, once dismissed and crumpled, now carries the weight of possibility. Around him, the world moves on, unaware that a quiet revolution is about to unfold. Mrs. Brandt's gaze lingers a moment longer before she turns away, the tightness in her smile deepening. The camera lingers on Marcus's backpack, a humble vessel, holding the power to change everything. The scene closes on Marcus walking into the fading light, the storm within him ready to break. Mr. Lewis pushes his cart down the quiet hallway, the wheels squeaking softly as he stops by the old storage closet. He unlocks the door, the air inside thick with dust and forgotten years. Shelves sag under the weight of abandoned projects, artwork, essays, poems, each labeled and stacked in faded folders. He pulls out a bundle marked unpolished, thus word written in red ink across the top. As he flips through the pages, his hands pause on Marcus's poem, the handwriting instantly familiar. He reads the lines slowly, lips moving in silence. The words hit him harder than he expected, stirring memories of his own daughter's dreams that never left the walls of this school. His fingers tremble, tracing the edges of the paper. He remembers the night she came home, her eyes red, her voice small as she told him her work wasn't good enough. He tucks Marcus's poem into his uniform pocket, a quiet act of rebellion that no one will notice. The hallway outside is empty, but the weight of the moment presses on him. He glances at the clock, then at the rows of folders, each one a story left unread. He wonders how many voices have been buried here, how many talents were dismissed before they could bloom. The ache in his chest is familiar, but today it feels sharper, more urgent. As he locks the closet, Mr. Lewis straightens his shoulders. He moves down the hall with a new purpose, the poem safe in his pocket. He passes a group of teachers laughing by the lounge, their conversation fading as he walks by. One teacher offers a polite nod, but her eyes slide away quickly, unwilling to meet him. Mr. Lewis keeps moving, the poem a silent promise that someone, at least, will remember. Students gather in small clusters near the lockers, their voices low and cautious. "She always does that," one whispers, eyes darting nervously. Marcus's friend Jalen grips his arm tightly, his gaze wide with a mix of fear and solidarity. The hallway feels thick with unspoken truths, the weight of years pressing down on their young shoulders. The bell rings, scattering the groups, but the murmurs linger like a fog that refuses to lift. A teacher passes by, her eyes flickering with a mix of regret and helplessness. She bites her lip, glancing away quickly, unwilling to confront the reality she's witnessed too many times. Marcus stands apart, his posture steady, but his mind racing. He hears the whispers, the stories of poems torn apart, dreams dismissed, and voices silenced. The memory of Mrs. Brandt's sharp tone echoes in his ears, but he doesn't flinch. Instead, he tightens his grip on the notebook in his backpack, a quiet promise to himself that this time, things will be different. In a nearby classroom, a student watches the hallway through the window, her expression thoughtful. She scribbles notes, capturing the tension, the fear, and the flicker of hope that Marcus represents. The school, once a place of quiet exclusion, begins to hum with the first notes of change. As the last students disappear down the corridor, the janitor pauses, mop in hand, his eyes reflecting years of silent witness. He nods once, a small gesture of encouragement. The hallway, heavy with history, breathes a little easier. Marcus sits at his desk long after midnight, the glow of his laptop the only light in the room. His fingers hover over the keyboard, hesitant as he types out his poem one last time. He chooses a pseudonym, Jesse Coleman, his heart pounding as he fills out the contest form. The house is quiet except for the distant hum of the refrigerator and the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. He glances at the door, half expecting his mother to check on him, but she's still at work, her scrub soaking in the laundry sink downstairs. Marcus reviews every line, reading them aloud in a whisper, searching for any sign of weakness. He remembers Mrs. Brandt's words, the way her smile never reached her eyes, and feels a flicker of doubt. He shakes it off, forcing himself to believe in the truth of his own voice. With a deep breath, he clicks Submit. The screen flashes, confirming the entry, and Marcus leans back in his chair, relief and anxiety mixing in his chest. He stares at his reflection in the darkened window, seeing a boy caught between fear and hope. The poem, once nearly discarded, now floats in the digital ether, carrying a piece of him into the world. He closes the laptop and runs a hand over his face, exhaustion settling in. On his nightstand, a photo of his grandmother smiles back at him, her eyes full of encouragement. Marcus whispers, "I did it, Grandma." The words hang in the air, soft but determined. Downstairs, the washing machine stops, the house settling into a deeper quiet. Marcus crawls into bed, the weight of the day finally lifting. Somewhere, beyond the walls of his room, possibility stirs. The cafe is dim, filled with the low hum of conversation and the clink of mugs. Marcus stands at the front, gripping the microphone with both hands. His friend Tasha sits near the stage, her phone hidden beneath the table, camera pointed just so. Marcus clears his throat, voice trembling at first, then steadying as he begins to read. His words cut through the chatter, raw and rhythmic, each line a piece of himself laid bare. The crowd quiets, heads turning, drawn in by the honesty in his tone. Tasha's eyes never leave him, her finger poised over the record button, capturing every syllable. In the back, a man nods slowly, recognizing something familiar in Marcus's cadence. A woman at the bar wipes her eyes, moved by the imagery of clipped wings and lost dreams. Marcus's hands shake, but he doesn't falter. He remembers Mrs. Brandt's dismissive voice, the way she made his poem feel small. Tonight, the words are his alone. No judgment, no ridicule, just the truth. Tasha glances at the screen, making sure the video is crisp, her heart pounding with pride. She knows what this moment means for Marcus, for everyone who's ever been told to stay quiet. The last line hangs in the air, the room holding its breath before erupting into applause. Marcus steps back, chest heaving, a smile breaking through his nerves. Tasha rushes to his side, phone still recording. "You did it," she whispers, squeezing his hand. Marcus nods, the weight of years lifting in an instant. The video, a record of rebellion and hope, is already on its way to the world. As they leave the stage, the cafe feels different, warmer, more alive. Marcus glances back at the crowd, their faces lit with admiration. For the first time, he believes his story matters. Tasha uploads the video before sunrise, her hand shaking as she types out a simple caption. "Listen." She sends the link to Marcus, then to a small group chat. Within hours, the clip jumps from one phone to another, spreading through group texts and social media feeds. Marcus wakes to dozens of notifications, his inbox flooded with messages from classmates and strangers alike. At lunch, a teacher scrolls through her phone, pausing when Marcus's face appears on her screen. She watches, her sandwich forgotten, guilt tightening in her chest as she remembers every time she let a comment slide. She sets her phone down, glancing across the cafeteria at Marcus, who sits quietly with Tasha, unaware of the ripple he's started. A parent sees the video on Facebook, sharing it with the hashtag #SameSchoolStories. Comments pile up, some from students who recognize the cafe, others from alumni who recall similar moments of being brushed aside. Marcus's words become a rallying cry, his voice echoing in places he's never been. In the hallway, Jalen catches up to Marcus, grinning. "You're everywhere, man. People are actually listening." Marcus shrugs, unsure how to process the sudden attention. He checks his phone again, the numbers climbing higher. Tasha leans over, her voice low. "This is just the beginning. By the end of the day, the video has been shared by a local news outlet. Marcus's poem, once nearly discarded, now pulses through the city, impossible to ignore." The school feels different. Students whisper in the halls. Teachers glance at Marcus, with new respect, and even Mrs. Brandt's smile falters when she hears his name. The video keeps spreading, refusing to fade. Marcus walks home, the poem pressed close to his chest, a symbol of quiet resistance that refuses to die. A notification pings softly in the quiet of Marcus's room, pulling him from restless sleep. The screen glows with a trending blog post. Its headline sharp, "They told me my stories were too much." Marcus's eyes widen as he reads the words, the author's voice echoing his own hidden struggles. The post, written years ago by a now successful novelist, calls out the same dismissive attitudes Marcus has faced. Comments flood in beneath the post. Hundreds of voices, once buried, now rising together. Each message is a thread in a tapestry of shared pain and resilience. Marcus leans back, the weight of history settling on his shoulders, but also a flicker of hope igniting within. Downstairs, his mother sips coffee, unaware of the digital storm brewing. Marcus's phone buzzes again, a message from a stranger. "Keep shining. We see you." He smiles faintly, the quiet power of connection wrapping around him like a shield. The next day at school, whispers ripple through the halls. Students exchange, knowing glances, their eyes brighter with recognition. Teachers glance at their phones, some with unease, others with a spark of understanding. The blog post has become a mirror, reflecting a system long overdue for change. Mrs. Brandt's expression tightens as she overhears a snippet of conversation. Her usual composure falters, a subtle tremor betraying her. The walls seem to close in, the past catching up with the present. Marcus walks through the corridor, the echoes of the post humming in the air. The weight of countless stories, once silenced, now fuels his resolve. The fight is no longer his alone. It belongs to a growing chorus demanding to be heard. The scene closes on Marcus's steady gaze, a young poet standing at the crossroads of history and hope, ready to write the next chapter. A pale envelope lands on the school board's reception desk, its only marking a shaky hand spelling "for review." The secretary hesitates, glancing around before sliding it into her drawer. Later, in the quiet of the office, she opens it. Inside, she finds Marcus's poem, a resignation letter from Mr. Lewis, and a flash drive labeled "Staff Emails." She reads the poem first, her brow furrowing as the words sink in. The resignation letter, brittle with age, details years of overlooked talent and quiet frustration. Her hands tremble as she plugs in the flash drive, scrolling through message after message, teachers dismissing dreams, praising conformity, and quietly steering students away from ambition. She calls the superintendent, voice wavering. "You need to see this," she says, her usual composure gone. The superintendent arrives, reading the documents in silence. He leans back, the weight of responsibility clear in his eyes. "We can't ignore this," he finally says, his tone heavy. Tea. Board meeting is called for the following evening. Word spreads quickly and staff gather in tense clusters, speculation buzzing through the halls. Some teachers exchange worried glances, while others look almost relieved. For years these stories have lived in whispers. Now their evidence. Mrs. Brandt hears the news from a colleague. She tries to brush it off, but her hands fidget with her necklace, betraying her unease. She avoids the staff lounge, the usual confidence in her stride replaced by uncertainty. As the sun sets, the boardroom fills. The secretary places the envelope at the center of the table, her heart pounding. Each document is a spark, threatening to ignite a reckoning long overdue. The room is thick with anticipation, the air charged with the promise of change. Marcus, unaware, walks home under the street lights, his story finally making its way to the people who can no longer look away. Marcus's mother stands in the dim kitchen, her hands roughened by years of work and worry. She holds a folded permission slip, the edges worn from being clutched tightly in moments of hope and fear. Memories crowd her mind. Her high school counselor's dismissive words, the careful steering away from dreams of writing toward something safer, something practical. She remembers the sting of that moment, the way it shaped every decision since. She looks at Marcus, her voice a whisper both fierce and gentle. "Go be free," she says, pressing the slip into his hand. The weight of her sacrifice and unspoken dreams hangs in the air, a silent testament to battles fought. In shadows, Marcus nods, understanding the gravity of what she's given him. Downstairs, The house is quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of a clock ticking. He packs his bag, the poem folded carefully inside, a fragile shield against the world's indifference. His mother watches from the doorway, eyes shining with pride and worry intertwined. She recalls the nights spent comforting Marcus after harsh days, the whispered encouragements when the world seemed too heavy. "You are more than their doubts," she told him, her voice steady despite the tears she hid. In the kitchen, the worn table bears the marks of years, scratches and stains that tell stories of struggle and survival. She traces a finger over the surface, grounding herself in the present moment, knowing the fight is far from over. Marcus pauses at the door, turning back to meet her gaze. No words are needed. Their eyes speak volumes. A silent pact, forged in love and determination, passes between them. Outside, the night holds its breath, city lights flickering like distant possibilities. Marcus steps into the unknown, carrying not just his words but the legacy of resilience passed down through generations. Her hands, marked by both silence and strength, release their hold. The permission slip is a key, unlocking a future where voices once stifled can finally rise. The night deepens, but inside a quiet fire burns, a promise that no voice will be silenced again. Marcus wakes to the vibration of his phone, the screen flooded with notifications. Overnight, a renowned poet shared his video with a simple caption, "This is why we write." The post spreads like wildfire, gathering thousands of retweets and comments from writers, students, and activists across the country. Each new alert is another ripple in a growing wave, his words reaching places he never imagined. At school, the atmosphere is charged. Students huddle in groups, phones in hand, reading out loud the supportive messages and calls for change. The school's social media is overwhelmed, alumni, parents, and strangers demanding accountability, their voices impossible to ignore. The principal's office phone rings so often the secretary can barely keep up, her voice strained as she fields questions from reporters and concerned families. Teachers gather in the hallway, some exchanging anxious looks, others quietly hopeful that real change might finally be possible. In the teacher's lounge, Mrs. Brandt sits rigidly at the table, her coffee untouched. She scrolls through her phone, watching as screenshots of her dismissive comments circulate online. Her hand tightens around her mug, knuckles pale. She deletes her Twitter app, but the damage is done. Her name is now linked to a national conversation about bias and exclusion. A colleague enters, pausing before offering a stiff nod, then quickly moving to the other side of the room. Marcus's mother stands behind him as he reads the poet's post, her eyes shining with pride and a hint of worry. People are listening. "Now," she says softly, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Marcus nods, feeling the weight of expectation but also the power of being heard. The school's walls, once a barrier, now feel porous, his story leaking out, amplified by voices that refuse to let it fade. As the day unfolds, the retweet storm grows. Marcus's poem, once nearly silenced, has become a rallying cry. The world is watching, and the school can no longer pretend not to see. Marcus walks slowly past the school's trophy case, the glass reflecting his steady gaze. The trophies gleam. Under the dim hallway lights, their polished surfaces a stark contrast to the faded faces of the students who once earned them. Each plaque bears names, mostly white, mostly male, reminders of a legacy that has long excluded voices like his. The display is meant to inspire, but for Marcus, it feels like a silent wall, a line drawn between who is celebrated and who is forgotten. He reaches out, fingertips brushing the cool glass, tracing the outlines of victories that never felt like his own. The weight of history presses down, a silent reminder of the barriers still standing. Behind him, a teacher erases the whiteboard with too much force, chalk dust falling like snow onto the floor, a quiet echo of forgotten dreams. Thuns, eraser squeaks, sharp and insistent, as if trying to scrub away more than just words. Marcus glances back, catching the teacher's eye for a moment. a look that holds both apology and regret before she turns away. Inside the classroom, the walls are lined with posters celebrating achievement, but the faces are pale and uniform. Marcus's reflection merges with the images, a ghost among ghosts. The air feels heavy, thick with the unspoken stories of students passed over, their talents overlooked. He sits at his desk, watching as classmates file in, some offering nods of support, others avoiding his gaze. The whispers that ripple through the room are different now, less about rumor, more about recognition. Outside the room, the hallway buzzes with a new kind of energy. Students exchange knowing looks, their eyes carrying the weight of shared experience. Teachers glance at their phones, some with unease, others with a spark of hope. The school is beginning to shift, but the ghosts of the past linger, reminding everyone of the work still to be done. Marcus pauses at the doorway, taking a deep breath. The poem in his backpack feels heavier now, a symbol of resistance and resilience. He steps forward, ready to face the challenges ahead, carrying the voices of those who came before and those who will follow. The scene closes on the trophy case, the light catching the dust motes in the air, a quiet testament to history and the promise of change. Marcus sits at the kitchen table, his backpack resting on the floor beside him, the poem tucked safely inside. The house is quiet, the kind of stillness that comes just before something big. He scrolls through his phone, half expecting the notifications to have slowed, but they haven't. Each buzz is another message, some from classmates, others from strangers, all echoing the same refrain, "We see you." He sets the phone down, rubbing his eyes, unsure if he's ready for what comes next. A new email appears at the top of his inbox. The subject line reads, Presidential Inauguration Youth Showcase. Invitation. Marcus stares at the screen, his breath caught in his throat. For a moment he can't move. His heart thunders in his chest as he opens the message, reading the words over and over. The invitation is real, an official request for him to perform his poem at the nation's capital, in front of thousands, with the world watching. He stands abruptly, chair scraping the tile, and paces the kitchen. The refrigerator hums, the clock ticks, but everything else fades into the background. His mother enters, groceries in hand, pausing when she sees his face. "Marcus, what is it?" Her voice is gentle but laced with concern. He turns the phone toward her, unable to speak. She reads the email, her eyes widening, a hand flying to her mouth. Tears well up, pride and disbelief mingling on her face. Marcus laughs, the sound shaky and bright. "They want me, Mom. They really want me." She pulls him into a hug, holding him close, her voice thick with emotion. "You did this. You made them listen." He nods, overwhelmed, the reality of the moment settling in. The poem that was almost thrown away is now his ticket to the biggest stage of all. He sits back down, reading the invitation again, letting it sink in. The kitchen, once a place of quiet struggle, now feels like the center of the universe. Marcus closes his eyes, picturing the crowd, the lights, the possibility of finally being heard. The future, for the first time, feels wide open. The boardroom is filled with a tense, expectant hush as the meeting begins. The overhead lights reflect off polished wood, illuminating a circle of faces, some anxious, some determined, all aware that the moment is different from any that came before. A board member clears her throat, her hands trembling slightly as she lifts Marcus's poem from a folder marked Correspondence. She begins to read aloud, her voice wavering at first but growing steadier with every line. The words, raw and honest, cut through the usual formality, laying bare the wounds that have been ignored for too long. Around the table, the impact is immediate. The superintendent sits rigid, his eyes locked on the thick stack of complaints and testimonies that have accumulated over the years. Each document is a reminder of the stories that were dismissed, the students who were told their dreams were too much, their ambitions too bold. The secretary, usually brisk and efficient, pauses as she types, her fingers hovering over the keys, absorbing the gravity of what's unfolding. The air is thick with the unspoken acknowledgement that the system they upheld is no longer defensible. Outside. The boardroom. Mr. Lewis stands in the hallway, mop in hand, listening through the crack in the door. For years, he's watched students like Marcus struggle against barriers that never should have existed. Tonight, he allows himself a rare moment of hope as the voices inside finally speak the truth he's always known. Down the hall, teachers gather in small groups, their conversations hushed but urgent, the old guard sensing the ground shifting beneath their feet. As the poem's final lines fade, the board members exchange glances, a silent agreement passing among them. The superintendent clears his throat, his voice steady. "We will not let this continue. Change starts tonight." The secretary records the motion, her hands finally steady. The bell jar, once airtight and unyielding, cracks open. The old order surrenders not with a bang, but with a collective breath, the promise of something better settling over the room. Marcus, unaware of the history being made in his name, walks home beneath the streetlights, the future quietly rearranging itself. With each step, the gymnasium is packed, every seat filled and every wall lined with students, parents, and staff. The buzz of conversation is electric, but beneath it lies an undercurrent of tension. Everyone knows this assembly is different. The principal stands at the podium, shuffling papers with hands that betray a faint tremor. Banners celebrating. Past achievements hang overhead, their colors faded, the names on them a reminder of who has always been recognized and who has not. Marcus waits backstage, his poem folded neatly in his hand. He can hear the restless shifting of hundreds of bodies, the occasional cough, the stifled laughter of students trying to mask their nerves. Jalen stands beside him, offering a supportive nod. "You ready?" he whispers. Marcus nods, swallowing, hard, his heart hammering against his ribs. The poem feels heavier than ever, a burden and a shield all at once. On the gym floor, Mrs. Brandt sits in the front row, her posture rigid, arms crossed tightly over her chest. She scans the program, her lips pressed into a thin line. Around her, teachers exchange uneasy glances, unsure which way the wind is blowing. Some look away, others watch her closely, waiting for a crack in her composure. The principal taps the microphone, the screech silencing the room. "Thank you all for coming," he begins, his voice echoing off the high ceiling. "Today we recognize a student whose words have reached far beyond these walls." The crowd quiets, anticipation thickening the air. Marcus steps into the light, the applause hesitant at first, then swelling as students and parents realize the moment's significance. He stands at the center of the stage, the gym's vastness pressing in. For a heartbeat, the world seems to hold its breath. Every eye is on him, some curious, some skeptical, many quietly hopeful. Marcus unfolds the poem, the paper trembling only slightly in his grasp. The silence is total, expectant, as he draws a breath and prepares to speak, the echoes of this moment promising to linger long after the words are spoken. The principal's voice fills the gym, steady but lacking warmth. "We are honored to have one of our own performing at the highest stage," he announces, gesturing toward Marcus. The crowd's applause is polite, cautious, as if unsure what to expect next. The echo of clapping bounces off the walls, but the energy feels restrained, as though everyone is waiting for permission to truly celebrate. Mrs. Brandt sits in the front row, her fingers digging into the program. Her smile is brittle, eyes flicking to Marcus with a mix of disbelief and thinly veiled resentment. Around her, teachers exchange uneasy glances, some nodding subtly, others avoiding eye contact. Altogether, the tension is palpable, a silent standoff between the old guard and the possibility of change. Marcus steps forward, the poem folded carefully in his hands. His voice is calm, measured, carrying the weight of every silenced word. "This poem is for everyone who was told to be quiet," he begins, eyes scanning the crowd but never settling on Mrs. Brandt. The room holds its breath, the silence thick and expectant. The words hang in the air, challenging the boundaries that have always defined who gets to speak and who must listen. A teacher in the back leans forward, recognition dawning as she hears the familiar lines, the same ones Mrs. Brandt had dismissed weeks ago. Phones appear, quietly recording, the video already beginning to spread beyond the gym's walls. The moment is being captured, shared, and amplified in real time. Mrs. Brandt's lips pressed tight, a subtle twitch betraying her composure. Her fingers tighten around the program, knuckles whitening. The applause grows, genuine now, as Marcus's words resonate beyond the walls of the gym. The principal watches, a flicker of pride mixed with uncertainty. The moment is a turning point, the old order quietly shifting beneath the weight of truth. The scene closes on Marcus's steady gaze, the poem a beacon of resilience and hope, the crowd's energy transformed by the power of his voice. Marcus's voice, steady and low, fills the gymnasium, cutting through the thick silence. He doesn't glance at Mrs. Brandt, but the crowd does. His words paint pictures of clipped wings and silenced voices, metaphors that echo the pain of years spent unheard. The audience leans in, caught in the raw honesty of his delivery. Mrs. Brandt's face pales, her usual mask of control slipping for a fleeting moment. Her fingers twitch nervously, lips pressed into a thin line. The weight of Marcus's truth presses against her, unraveling the carefully constructed walls of denial she's maintained. A student in the back raises a phone, live streaming the moment. Views spike in real time, the video spreading beyond the gym's walls, reaching ears and eyes far beyond the school. The energy in the room shifts, a collective breath held as Marcus's words resonate deeply. The principal watches from the sidelines, pride mingling with uncertainty. Teachers exchange glances, some nodding subtly, others wiping away quiet tears. Parents lean forward, their faces a mix of hope and sorrow. The poem is no longer just Marcus's. It belongs to everyone who has ever been told to stay silent. As Marcus finishes, the room remains still for a heartbeat longer, the silence heavy with meaning. Then, applause breaks out, slow at first, then swelling into a wave of support. Mrs. Brandt lowers her gaze, the sound washing over her like a tide she cannot fight. The scene closes on Marcus's calm expression, the poem a beacon of resilience and hope. The crowd's energy has transformed. The quiet ones finally heard, their voices unleashed. Mrs. Brandt's hand darts to her neck, fingers twisting the strand of pearls she wore as a symbol of authority. For the first time all evening, her composure wavers, her lips tremble, a sheen of sweat glistens on her brow, and the gym's lights seem to burn hotter, the walls pressing in. A parent in the stands raises a phone, snapping a photo at the perfect moment, an image that will soon circulate online under the hashtag #JumBrandtUnmasked, spreading faster than whispers. The crowd shifts, a ripple of discomfort moving through the rows. Whispers rise like a tide, questions and realizations passing from one person to another. Mrs. Brandt's eyes flicker, searching for a sense of control that slips further away with each passing second. The sharpness she once wielded dulls, replaced by a flicker of doubt and fear. Her practiced smile falters, revealing cracks beneath the surface. Marcus stands unwavering, his voice calm and resolute as he delivers the poem's final lines. Each word lands with quiet force, dismantling years of denial and silence. The audience leans in, caught between shock and a dawning sense of awakening. In the back, a teacher wipes away a tear, her hands trembling. Another teacher exchanges a glance with a colleague, both silently acknowledging the shift in the room. The principal's jaw tightens, posture rigid as he senses the old order crumbling. Mrs. Brandt's fingers tremble as she adjusts her necklace again, a futile attempt to regain her former composure. The hashtag spreads rapidly, the digital world watching, waiting for what comes next. The mask she's worn for years slips, and the truth, long suppressed, begins to breathe in the open air. The gym falls into a heavy pause, the air thick with unspoken reckoning. Mrs. Brandt's breath catches, her eyes flickering with fear and resignation. The crowd's energy shifts palpably, marking a turning point. A student in the front row quietly records the scene, the phone's glow illuminating their determined face. The video is already making its way across social media, a digital echo of the live moment. Marcus's calm presence stands in stark contrast to Mrs. Brandt's unraveling. His words carry the weight of generations, steady and unyielding. The room feels smaller, the walls closing in on those who once held power without question. The principal clears his throat, breaking the tension with a measured statement about accountability and the need for change. His words hang in the air, a promise and a challenge for everyone present. Mrs. Brandt's shoulders slump, the weight of the moment pressing down. The pearls at her neck catch the light one last time before she lowers her hand, the mask fully fallen. The scene closes on Marcus's steady gaze, the poem's final lines echoing in the hearts of all present. The gym, once a place of quiet exclusion, now hums with the first notes of transformation. The inauguration ceremony unfolds on screens across classrooms and living rooms, the nation watching with bated breath. Just before the president takes the stage, the camera cuts to Marcus, standing tall and composed, his poem echoing through the airwaves. Students gasp, their eyes wide with awe and disbelief. In Mrs. Brandt's classroom, the TV remains dark. Order. But her phone vibrates relentlessly, notifications flooding in. She glances at the screen, her face tightening as messages pour in, each one a reminder of the moment she tried to dismiss. The principal's office buzzes with urgent calls, staff scrambling to respond to the sudden spotlight. The school's social media channels lit up, the video of Marcus's performance shared and reshared, a beacon of hope and defiance. Outside the school, parents gather, watching the live stream on their phones, their expressions a mix of pride and cautious optimism. Teachers whisper in hallways, some nodding in quiet approval, others exchanging worried looks. The atmosphere is charged, the old order trembling under the weight of change. An email pings in Mrs. Brandt's inbox, subject, line stark, urgent meeting. Her hands tremble as she opens it, the words inside signaling a reckoning she can no longer avoid. The camera lingers on Marcus, his calm presence a stark contrast to the storm brewing behind the scenes. The scene closes on the school building, lights glowing softly in the dusk, a symbol of a community on the brink of transformation. The quiet power of one voice has reached far beyond the walls, setting in motion a wave that cannot be stopped. The hashtag #MarcusVas the system explodes across social media, trending within hours. Celebrities, activists, and everyday people share Marcus's poem, their posts filled with outrage, admiration, and solidarity. Screens everywhere light up with his words, the side-by-side video of Mrs. Brandt's classroom mockery and Marcus's triumphant performance sparking a national conversation. The contrast is undeniable. One moment of dismissal, another of undeniable brilliance. At the school, the website crashes under the flood of visitors. The principal's office becomes a command center, phones ringing nonstop as reporters, alumni, and concerned parents demand answers. Staff scramble to draft statements, their faces drawn and anxious. Teachers huddle in corners, some exchanging hopeful glances, others whispering about the sudden scrutiny. The old hierarchy, once unshakable, now teeters as the world watches. Mrs. Brandt sits at her kitchen table, her phone buzzing with notifications she can't escape. Screenshots of her past comments circulate, each one dissected and condemned. She deletes her social media accounts, but the digital trail remains, her reputation unraveling with every share. Her hands shake as she reads messages from former students, some angry, others simply disappointed. The power she once wielded with a glance or a word has slipped away, replaced by a growing sense of isolation. Meanwhile, Marcus's inbox fills with messages of support. Writers, students, and even strangers reach out, thanking him for his courage and honesty. His mother reads each one aloud, her pride unmistakable. The school's hallways buzz with excitement and nervous energy, students gathering in groups to watch the latest news coverage, their voices louder and more confident than ever before. Thought-defining. World's attention is now firmly fixed on the school, the story no longer contained within its walls. The viral fury is more than a trend. It is a reckoning, a demand for justice, and a celebration of a voice that refused to be silenced. As night falls, Marcus sits quietly at his desk, the glow of his phone illuminating a face determined to keep speaking, no matter how loud the world gets. The classroom is quiet, the usual hum of activity replaced by a heavy stillness. Mrs. Brandt sits alone at her desk, the glow of the computer screen casting shadows across her face. Her Teacher of the Year plaque gathers dust on the wall, a silent reminder of a past that feels increasingly distant. Outside, the janitors buff the hallway floors, their laughter echoing faintly, a stark contrast to the solitude inside. She opens a drawer filled with ungraded papers, her fingers brushing over the edges of essays and poems left untouched. On top lies Marcus's poem, its corners worn from her own hands. She picks it up, reading the lines again, the weight of her action settling heavily on her shoulders. The room feels smaller, the walls closing in as the reality of change creeps closer. In the hallway, the janitor pauses, mop in hand, watching the empty classroom with a quiet smile. His eyes reflect years of silent endurance and hope. Teachers pass by, some casting furtive glances toward the room, others avoiding it altogether. The fortress of old authority is crumbling, not with noise, but with the slow erosion of respect and relevance. Mrs. Brandt's shoulders slump as she leans, back in her chair, the silence pressing down. The power she once wielded with a glance or a word has faded, replaced by a growing sense of isolation. The classroom, once a stage for control, now feels like a cage of regret. Outside, the school moves forward, the echoes of the past fading into whispers. The scene closes on the empty desk, the poem resting there like a quiet testament to resilience and change. The fortress has fallen, and a new chapter begins, written not in authority, but in the voices long silenced. Marcus sits at a table lined with microphones and cameras, the press conference room buzzing with anticipation. Reporters shuffle their notes, the air thick with questions and the weight of a story that has captured national attention. Marcus's mother sits beside him, her hand resting gently on his, a steady anchor amid the swirl of lights and voices. A reporter leans forward, voice cautious but insistent. "Marcus, what do you want people to take from your poem?" Marcus looks up, his eyes clear and unwavering. "This isn't about revenge," he says, his tone calm but resolute. "It's about respect. I just want to be heard." The room is quiet, the simple honesty of his words settling over the crowd. The principal stands at the back, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Teachers and students watch the live stream from classrooms and homes, their faces a mix of pride, relief, and hope. The contrast between Marcus's composed presence and the recently leaked emails, messages in which Mrs. Brandt and others discussed managing expectations for black students, hangs in the air, unspoken but understood by all. Another reporter asks about the viral video and the response it's received. Marcus nods, acknowledging the outpouring of support. "I'm grateful people are listening," he says quietly, "but there are a lot of voices like mine, voices that have been quiet for too long." His mother squeezes his hand, her pride shining through tears she refuses to let fall. The press conference ends with a final question about what comes next. Marcus smiles, a quiet confidence in his expression. "I'll keep writing, I'll keep speaking, and I hope others do too." The cameras flash, capturing the moment, a young man, calm and dignified, refusing to be defined by the limits others tried to set. As the room empties, the impact lingers. The world has heard Marcus, and the echoes of his words promise change that will not be easily forgotten. A thick envelope rests on the polished mahogany table in Mrs. Brandt's dining room, its official seal impossible to ignore. The morning sun casts long shadows across the wood as she sits, staring at her untouched coffee, the world outside her window moving on without her. Her husband enters, picking up the letter and reading the bold print aloud. Pending investigation, immediate administrative leave. His voice is steady, but his eyes betray a mix of disbelief and disappointment. Mrs. Brandt's hands tremble as she takes the letter, the paper crisp and cold. She scans the contents, her heart pounding with each line. The words blur together: allegations, evidence, district policy, student testimonies. She sets the letter down, her breath shallow, and rises from the table, the room suddenly too small. Her husband stands silent, unsure whether to comfort or confront, the distance between them growing with each passing second. She moves to the garden, the morning air sharp against her skin. The sound of neighbors' voices drifts over the fence, soft, deliberate, conversations that pause when she steps outside. She feels their eyes, their judgments, the weight of a community's quiet verdict pressing down. She sits on a weathered bench, the letter still in her hand, and stares at the butterfly that lands beside her. Its wings flutter, delicate and free, a living echo of the line from Marcus's poem, "Freedom's Fragile Wings." Inside, the house is silent, the walls holding memories of a career built on certainty now slipping away. Mrs. Brandt closes her eyes, the reality settling in, her authority gone, her reputation in ruins, her future uncertain. She listens to the distant laughter of children walking to school, their voices brighter than she remembers. The world is changing, and her place in it is no longer assured. As the butterfly takes flight, Mrs. Brandt remains seated, the letter heavy in her lap. The final blow has been delivered, not with anger or accusation, but with the quiet force of truth, finally acknowledged. Marcus's poem now stretches across the school's entrance, transformed into a mural alive with color and meaning. Students Sayadurian pause as they enter, fingertips grazing the painted words, their faces reflecting awe and newfound pride. The mural is impossible to ignore, its presence a daily reminder that stories once dismissed can become the heart of a community. Each brushstroke is a testament to voices reclaimed and dignity restored, the school's walls finally honoring those who were once left out. Mrs. Brandt's footsteps echo down the corridor as she approaches the mural, her gaze fixed straight ahead. The vibrant display stands as a quiet rebuke, challenging the legacy she once controlled. She takes the long route to her classroom, avoiding the crowd that gathers to read and discuss the poem. Her silence is louder than any protest, a retreat from a world that has moved beyond her influence. The energy in the hallway is different now, filled with laughter, conversation, and the sense that something fundamental has shifted. Nearby, the janitor pauses beside the mural, offering a gentle nod of respect. His eyes linger on the lines, a silent acknowledgement of the years spent watching students struggle for recognition. Teachers escort classes past the mural, encouraging discussion about its meaning and the journey that led to its creation. Younger students ask questions, their curiosity sparking conversations about justice, courage, and the importance of every voice. The school feels lighter, the air charged with hope and possibility. Marcus walks through the halls, greeted by classmates, and teachers who now see him as more than just a student, they see him as a catalyst for change. The mural stands as a symbol of transformation, a promise that the halls will remember those who dared to speak, and a challenge to never let those voices be silenced again. As the day ends, sunlight streams through the windows, illuminating the mural and casting its colors across the floor. The school breathes easier, its walls alive with the memory of struggle and the promise of a future shaped by truth and inclusion. Mrs. Brandt sits by the window of a nearly empty cafe, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that's grown cold. She scrolls through headline after headline on her phone, each one celebrating Marcus's triumph, each one mentioning the district's new equity policy. Her name appears in articles, not as a respected educator, but as a cautionary tale. The world she once shaped with a glance and a grade has shifted, leaving her on the outside looking in. The barista, a former student, moves easily from table to table, greeting every customer with a genuine smile. When she reaches Mrs. Brandt, her expression hardens, voice clipped and formal. "Refill?" she asks, not waiting for an answer before moving on. Mrs. Brandt watches her walk away, the sting of being dismissed settling deep in her chest. Around her the cafe hums with quiet conversation and laughter, but no one acknowledges her presence. She is invisible in a place where she once commanded respect. She glances out the window, watching as parents and children pass by, their faces animated with hope and possibility. A group of teachers from her old school enters, their laughter filling the space. They spot her, but their greetings are muted, their eyes sliding past her as if she's just another stranger. The isolation is sharper than any public reprimand, a slow, relentless erosion of the authority she once wielded so easily. Her phone buzzes with another news alert. She sets it face down, unable to read another story about change she can no longer influence. The coffee grows colder, untouched, as she sits in the shadow of her own decisions. Each ignored glance, each polite but distant interaction, is a quiet punishment, a reminder that the world has moved forward without her. The cafe, once a place of comfort, now feels like exile. Mrs. Brandt sits in the fading afternoon light, realizing that the silence around her is not just absence, but consequence. Mrs. Brandt leaves the cafe, her steps slow and uncertain as she walks through streets that once felt familiar. The afternoon sun casts long shadows, but none longer than the one now trailing her reputation. She passes neighbors she's known for years, parents whose children sat in her classroom, colleagues who once waved from across the street. Today, they cross to the other side, their conversations pausing until she's passed, their eyes fixed on the pavement or the horizon beyond her. A mother with a stroller glances up, recognizes Mrs. Brandt, and quietly steers her child away, her polite smile replaced by a tight, unreadable line. A group of teenagers stands on a corner, their laughter fading as she approaches. One of them, a former student, meets her gaze for a split second before turning his back, the gesture more cutting than any words. The world she once ruled with quiet authority now moves around her, not with confrontation, but with a collective, wordless verdict. She tries to nod at a neighbor tending his garden, but he simply wipes his brow and turns away, pretending not to notice. The windows of houses close softly as she walks by, the faint sound of music and conversation muffled behind drawn curtains. Each small act of avoidance, each averted glance, is a reminder that her influence has evaporated, replaced by a quiet but absolute social exile. As she nears her own home, Mrs. Brandt feels the weight of her choices pressing down. The silence is not empty. It is full of judgment, disappointment, and the slow realization that the community she thought she knew has changed. She unlocks her door and steps inside, the sound of the latch clicking shut echoing in the empty hallway. The neighborhood's verdict is clear. She is no longer welcome, her authority dissolved by the very people she once believed she served. Mrs. Brandt enters the staff room for the weekly meeting, her footsteps echoing in the suddenly spacious space. The usual chatter is absent, replaced by a heavy quiet. Teachers gather in small groups, their conversations hushed and their eyes sliding past her as she approaches. The principal sits at the head of the table, reviewing notes, his face unreadable. Mrs. Brandt takes her usual seat, but the sense of belonging she once felt is gone, replaced by a cold awareness of her new status. She clears her throat, offering a suggestion about a new curriculum. The words hang in the air, unanswered. A younger teacher glances at her, then quickly looks away, pretending to jot something in her notebook. Another teacher, who once sought her advice, now leans in to whisper with a colleague, their heads close together, their backs turned. The principal acknowledges her comment with a polite nod but moves on without discussion, shifting the agenda to topics led by others. Mrs. Brandt's hands rested on the table, fingers interlaced tightly. She tries again, her voice softer, suggesting a change to the upcoming parent night. The room remains still, her idea passed over without so much as a question. The new art teacher, recently hired, presents a plan for student expression and inclusion. The staff listens intently, nodding, their energy focused on the future rather than the past. As the meeting draws to a close, teachers gather their things, chatting quietly as they leave. Mrs. Brandt lingers, packing her bag slowly, hoping for a word or a smile. None comes. The staff room empties, the door closing with a gentle finality. The authority she once wielded has unraveled, not with a dramatic confrontation, but with a series of small, decisive omissions. She sits for a moment longer, the stillness pressing in, before finally rising to leave, a leader left behind by the very team she once led. Mrs. Brandt walks the halls of the school, her footsteps muffled by the worn linoleum, the familiar rhythm, now oddly out of place. The corridor, once a stage for her authority, feels cavernous and cold. Students pass by in clusters, their laughter and conversation flowing around her as if she were a forgotten fixture. A few glance her way, but their eyes slide off her, uninterested, as if she's become part of the background. She pauses by a bulletin board, reading announcements for new clubs and student-led initiatives, projects that would have once required her approval, but now move forward without her input. The faces in the photos are fresh, diverse, and full of excitement, a stark contrast to the tightly controlled order she maintained for years. Teachers stand by their doors, greeting students with warmth and openness. One nods politely as Mrs. Brandt passes, but the gesture is formal, not familiar. Further down the hall, she hears a burst of applause from a classroom. Peeking in, she sees a young teacher celebrating a student's creative project, the room alive with encouragement and possibility. Mrs. Brandt lingers for a moment, watching the scene unfold, feeling the ache of exclusion. The energy that once gravitated toward her now pulses elsewhere, drawn to new leaders and new ideas. As she continues her walk, the walls seem to close in, the echoes of her past decisions reverberating in the empty spaces. The school feels different, lighter, more vibrant, yet also more indifferent to her presence. Her legacy, once etched into every corner, is fading, replaced by a culture she no longer recognizes or controls. When the final bell rings, Mrs. Brandt stands alone at the end of the hallway. The building empties around her, the last echoes of footsteps swallowed by the walls. She realizes, with a quiet certainty, that the era she shaped has ended, and the halls will remember her not for her power, but for the silence she leaves behind. Marcus returns to school to find the library transformed. Where once there were blank beige walls, now a mural stretches across the entrance, alive with color, hope, and his own words. His poem is painted in bold strokes, every line a testament to the voices that were once dismissed and the dreams that refused to die. Younger students gather near the mural, their faces bright with admiration as they trace the words with their fingertips, whispering lines to each other as if sharing a secret. Teachers invite Marcus into their classrooms, asking him to talk about his journey and the meaning behind his poem. He stands before students who look at him with respect, their questions thoughtful and sincere. For the first time, Marcus feels the weight of his story not as a burden, but as a gift, something that can inspire, heal, and ignite change. The library, once a place where he felt invisible, now hums with energy and possibility. Students linger, after school, reading, writing, and sharing their own stories beneath the mural's watchful gaze. Mrs. Brandt passes by the library, her footsteps slowing as she catches sight of the mural. She stands in the doorway, watching as students gather around Marcus, their laughter and excitement filling the air. Her presence goes unnoticed, her influence faded. The mural is a quiet victory, a celebration of resilience and the power of truth spoken in the face of adversity. It is a reminder that even the smallest voice can leave a mark that endures. As the day ends, sunlight streams through the library windows, illuminating the mural and casting a warm glow across the room. Marcus sits with a group of students, signing slips of paper and offering gentle encouragement. "Don't let anyone make you small," he tells a shy boy, his words carrying the weight of hard-won dignity. The library, once silent, now pulses with life, a sanctuary for stories, a monument to the silenced finally being heard. Marcus sits at a long table in the school library, a stack of books and papers before him. Around him, younger students form, a quiet line, each holding a notebook or a slip of paper, their eyes wide with anticipation. He signs each one carefully, his pen moving steadily, a gentle smile playing on his lips. "Don't let anyone make you small," he tells a shy boy, his voice soft but firm, carrying the weight of his own journey. The room hums with a new energy, a sense of dignity restored. Teachers watch from the sidelines, their expressions a mix of pride and hope. One teacher leans in to whisper to a colleague, "He's changing everything," quietly but surely. Marcus pauses between signatures, looking up to meet the eyes of a young girl who hesitates at the front of the line. He offers her a nod of encouragement, and she steps forward, her smile growing. The library, once a place of silence and exclusion, now pulses with life and possibility. Outside, the halls buzz, with conversations about the new creative writing program, led by diverse faculty members who bring fresh perspectives and voices. Marcus is invited to mentor younger writers, his presence a beacon for those who once felt invisible. The school feels different, lighter, more open, charged with the promise of change. Students gather in small groups, sharing their own poems and stories inspired by Marcus's quiet strength. As the afternoon light filters through the windows, Marcus closes the last book and stands, the weight of his experience balanced by a quiet confidence. The dignity he has reclaimed is not loud or boastful. It is steady, a gentle force that reshapes the school's future one small act at a time. He walks through the halls greeted by nods and smiles, the poem in his backpack a symbol of resilience and hope. The quiet power of dignity restored echoes in every step he takes, and the school, once marked by silence, now thrives on the voices it almost lost. The staff room, once Mrs. Brandt's stronghold, now buzzes with a different energy. Teachers cluster at tables, their conversations focused on the future, on new writing workshops, on student-led projects, on policies that finally reflect the diversity of their classrooms. Mrs. Brandt sits at the edge of the room, her coffee, untouched, listening as her colleagues discuss ideas she once would have controlled. Her attempts to join in are met with polite nods but no real engagement. The momentum has shifted, and she feels it in every sidelong glance and unfinished sentence. A younger teacher, Miss Patel, shares a story about a student who found her voice through poetry. "It's like the whole school is waking up," she says, her eyes bright. Others agree, their voices overlapping with excitement. The new art teacher suggests a mural project to celebrate students' stories, and the group immediately begins brainstorming. Mrs. Brandt offers a suggestion, but it trails off, lost in the wave of enthusiasm for new ideas. She stirs her coffee, the spoon clinking quietly in the mug, her presence barely acknowledged. In a corner, two veteran teachers exchange a look. One of them shrugs, the other gives a small sympathetic smile. The old alliances have faded, replaced by a culture that values listening over lecturing, collaboration over control. The principal enters, congratulating the staff on the positive changes and encouraging them to keep pushing forward. He barely glances at Mrs. Brandt, his focus on the teachers who are shaping the school's new direction. As the bell rings and teachers file out, Mrs. Brandt lingers, watching the room empty. The staff room, once her domain, now belongs to the next generation. The whispers that once carried her authority now signal her fading relevance. She gathers her things in silence, the realization settling in that the old guard is gone and the school's future will be written by voices she can no longer silence or shape. Marcus stands in the center of a bustling classroom, surrounded by eager faces and open notebooks. The air hums with energy, a stark contrast to the silence that once filled these halls. New teachers, diverse and passionate, lead discussions that celebrate every voice, every story. Marcus watches as younger, Students share poems and essays, their words weaving a tapestry of hope and change. He moves through the room, offering quiet encouragement. "Keep writing," he tells a girl whose hands tremble as she holds her poem. "Your voice matters." The students listen, their confidence growing with each gentle affirmation. The creative writing program, once just an idea, now thrives under the guidance of faculty who understand the power of inclusion. Teachers exchange stories of transformation, their eyes bright with renewed purpose. The old barriers crumble not with noise, but with steady, persistent change. Outside the classroom, the school feels alive with possibility. Hallways echo with laughter and conversation, a chorus of new beginnings. Marcus is invited to mentor, his presence a beacon for those who once felt invisible. He sits with a group of students in the library, discussing the importance of telling their own stories. "You don't have to wait for permission," he says. "You already belong here." The principal passes by, pausing to observe the vibrant scene. He nods in approval, recognizing that the school's culture has shifted for good. Teachers from different backgrounds collaborate on new projects, their lessons filled with empathy and creativity. The murals on the walls, the poetry slams in, the auditorium, and the open mic nights all serve as reminders that every student's experience is valued. As the day ends, Marcus steps into the sunlight, the future wide open before him. The school, once a place of quiet exclusion, now pulses with the voices of many, each one a testament to resilience and hope. The quiet revolution continues, carried forward by new voices and new futures. Marcus smiles, knowing that the change he helped spark is now unstoppable, woven into the very fabric of the school. Marcus's voiceover carries through the halls, gentle but unyielding. Change doesn't roar, it whispers, through every door that opens, every story finally told. The camera lingers on students working late into the afternoon, their heads bent over notebooks, sharing poems and stories with a confidence that grows with every reading. Teachers listen, their eyes bright with hope, pausing to offer encouragement or simply to absorb the moment. The new creative writing program thrives, not because it was loudly announced, but because it was quietly embraced, one student at a time, one teacher at a time. In the library, Marcus sits with a small group of younger writers, their voices tentative at first, but gaining strength as he nods and asks questions. "You don't have to be loud to be heard," he tells them, his words settling over the group like a promise. The mural of his poem glows in the afternoon sun, a symbol that resilience and quiet determination can change the very walls that once seemed immovable. Hallways that were once marked by silence and avoidance now hum with conversation, laughter, and the steady rhythm of progress. Small victories accumulate with each passing day. A shy student volunteers to read her poem at assembly. A teacher changes a lesson plan to include more diverse voices. A new policy is read aloud in the staff meeting, met not with resistance, but with thoughtful nods. The school breathes easier, the tension that once filled its corners replaced by a sense of possibility. Marcus walks through these halls with a gentle smile, pausing to listen as a group of students recite lines of poetry, their voices weaving a tapestry of hope and belonging. The power of these small victories is unmistakable. Change is not always loud, not always immediate, but it is unstoppable. Each whisper, each act of courage, pushes the school further from its past and closer to a future shaped by inclusion and empathy. As the day ends, Marcus steps outside into the sunlight, the school behind him alive with possibility. The journey is not over, but the revolution, quiet and persistent, continues, carried forward by the whispers that have become a chorus of transformation. Marcus steps out into the morning sun, the light casting long shadows behind him as he walks with quiet confidence. His notebook is tucked under his arm, a symbol of the journey he has traveled and the stories he still carries. The school behind him hums with new energy, its walls alive with the voices of students who have found their place and their power. He pauses at the school gate, looking back once more. The mural of his poem glows softly in the dawn, a testament to resilience and change. The air is fresh, filled with the promise of new beginnings and the weight of lessons learned. Marcus breathes deeply, feeling the future open wide before him. Around him, the world stirs to life. Students gather in small groups, their laughter and conversation weaving through the halls. Teachers exchange smiles and nods, their eyes bright with hope and determination. The quiet revolution that began with a single poem has blossomed into a movement carried forward by voices once silenced. Marcus's voiceover begins, calm and steady. Change doesn't roar. It whispers, through every door that opens, every story finally told. He walks forward, the sun warming his face, each step a quiet declaration of hope and possibility. The school, once a place of exclusion, now pulses with life and promise. The future is not just a distant dream. It is here, unfolding with every breath, every word, every act of courage. As the scene fades, the camera lingers on Marcus's silhouette. Against the rising sun, a symbol of endurance and the power of a voice that refuses to be silenced. The story ends not with applause, but with the quiet strength of a new day, a new chapter, and the endless horizon ahead.